So our presentation is called Meet the New Gens, and our slogan is Beat Meat. My name is Gloria, and I'm from Westmount Secondary School, and I'm in grade 10.
Nathan, I think you're muted.
My name is Nathan. I attend Iroquois Ridge High School, and I'm also in grade 10.
So greeting judges, we would like you to play the role of an investor or a venture capitalist.
So what's in it for you? Well, we have a target market set, and we think that our target market is Generation Z because we find that they're very open-minded and that they'll be the dominant generation when we have our product ready. Many of them are currently unaware of this development, so we must develop a promotion plan to reach them. 10% of our sales of our units sold goes towards you, and so we invite you to come join us to be a part of the future. So first, we'd like to start off with an introduction to our journey to beat meat.
So according to the United Nations, more than 8.9% of the world experiences hunger on a daily basis. 2 billion people are unable to access nutritious and sufficient food, while 750 million people struggle with food security. Furthermore, due to COVID-19, these numbers are predicted to increase by 100 million, with more people facing chronic hunger by the year. Many people around the world combat malnutrition, the lack of protein, calories, carbohydrates, etc., resulting in a devastating condition. Even as there is a surplus of food being produced, millions of people still face starvation and chronic hunger. This led us to think, are there any other ways to distribute and produce meat? While this is a huge source of protein along with other ways. It's a huge protein essential amino acids. How can we develop a brighter future? So our project, additionally, as we know that climate change has become a large topic in the past few decades, and we are more aware of the methane and greenhouse gases emitted by the livestock and accounting for 14.5% of total greenhouse gas emissions in our atmosphere. So we're tackling goal number 1 and 4 along with solving climate change. It causes health concerns and etc.
So creating cultured meat is necessary for the future. And so by speeding up stem cell growth, we're able to share our findings with the world. So what is lab-grown meat?
Sorry. So now that we've recognized and explained our problem, we will now introduce you to our statement and our pitch, which will revolutionize the way people look at meat production. Intensive animal agriculture accounts for a large portion of greenhouse gas emissions, contributing to harsh climates and that. Beyond that, there has been rising health concerns regarding animal husbandry, which can lead to poverty and extensive hunger. So what is lab-grown meat? Lab-grown meat is commonly referred to as cultured meat. Go back, Nathan. It's commonly referred to as cultured meat, and it's the process of cultivating without slaughtering livestock. Remaining ethical issues was also one of our top priorities, and here you can see the timeline of notable events of synthetic meat. You can see on the left that August 13, the Dutch lab produces the world's first hamburger patty to present day, where the cultured meat is approved for sale in Singapore.
So here are just some examples of meat, of proteins that have already been lab grown. So on the top left, we first have the burger created by Professor Post in the Netherlands. Second, on the right side, we have eggs that have been lab grown into a way that we can now create plant-based eggs. And the bottom left is chicken.
Now, our general outline and concept involves taking previous research results and experiences applying our knowledge on muscle structure and past attempts at synthetic meat. We put our own spin to this and implemented the idea of creating cultured meat with our proposed solution by altering the genetic code, rearranging and using the process of genetic selection and adding peptides to the stem cells. More specifically, biopsies are performed on livestock and similar to those on humans. So once the muscle tissues are obtained, we can separate the fat cells and from the muscle cells. From there, we isolate the stem muscle cells And these are the building blocks that we create all kinds of organs. In this case, it's muscle. Using the muscle stem cells, we culture them in bioreactors, which due to its environment and temperature, it's a good environment to grow these muscle cells, and that's how it's produced. According to Dr. Mark Post, which is the CEO of Mosa Meats, the process of proliferating until we have trillions of cells takes about 9 weeks. Throughout our extensive research on related stem cell projects, we are confident that by adding peptides, which are just short strings of amino acid with large amounts of protein, this will speed up the stem cell growth. In fact, self-assembling peptides are proved to be a good candidate as they interact with cells and molecules when combined. This will result in more improved survival rates at the stem cells. Cell biologist Alicia Lyle had hoped to improve the survival rates of particular stem cells, as you can see on the slide, which we can use as reference when innovating our idea. Her tactic involved using hydrogel tubes along with bioreactors that simultaneously pumps cell suspension, which basically helps with cell multiplication. With this innovative technology, stem cells have a 90% rate compared to the 40% survival rate without the hydrogel solution.
So what is our solution? So to summarize, cellular engineering is not easy. So like we have to have branched out several possibilities to bring us quicker processes to harvest meat. So what we're planning to do is to invest in newer technologies such as these hydrocell tubes and bioreactors. And we also plan on using these peptides and altering these DNA strands. And so we'd like to bring you our prototype where we have created a minute-long video just to give you an example of what we are planning to make. So what benefits do we actually possess over like traditional lab-grown meat? Well, by being able to not only grow our own stem cells, but also being able to grow connective tissues such as collagen, we're able to, like real meat, use collagen to construct our meat to make it recognizable, because the current 3D meat, that 3D printed meat that we currently see looks a little bit strange, but if we're able to construct meat in the way that it's normally grown, we're able to have like recognizable fibers, and we're also able to have better, more like intricate details to produce, such as marbling, which not only improves flavor, but also helps this meat cook more realistically and have the same flavors, such as if you were to slow cook this meat, it would fall apart and become extra tender while it stays a little bit tougher while it's still raw. And so what does our environmental footprint look like? Well, it's easier just to compare it to like traditional livestock farming, where we see that it produces 9% of human CO2 emissions, it produces 37% of global methane emissions, and 65% of nitrous oxide emissions. And we see that like companies that already exist, such as Beyond Meat, use 90% less greenhouse gas, 46% less energy, 99% less water, and 93% less land. However, when we are growing our own meat in a lab, we pretty much have a far smaller manufacturing process, which means that we in the end produce less greenhouse gas and are less resource and energy intensive, but also because we aren't providing a plant-based alternative, we don't need the land to plant these plants, and therefore we use far less land. And so for cost, we see that like companies like Beyond Meat or Redefined Meat have around budgets of around 10 to 30 million for R&D, and companies like Beyond Meat had $465,785,000 in income in 2020, according to Yahoo Finance. And so a study published by Frontiers of Nutrition found that 65% of Americans were willing to try lab-grown meat, and their own individual surveying of GenZ students found that the rate was a lot higher, where 80% of them would try lab-grown meat in the future. And we see that by 2022, the sales of meat alternatives are expected to double, according to Statista. And so here was our data that we collected, where we were able to get a few responses, and we found that a lot of them were pretty much aware of what cultured meat already was, but that a lot of them, most of them, were willing to give this a try. So what is
So
our
here's our
timeline? Oh,
so here's our comprehensive timeline. So you see that from December 2020 to February 2021, we interviewed CSO Xiang Li, who supports our pitch and has begun to work towards this implementation.
Xiang Li has supported our idea. However, on our continued timeline, we see that by September 2021, we plan to be like halfway through finding possible partnerships and fundraising. And then by like week 3, we plan on having a test market product available, and we plan on beginning our intensive promotion period starting November 2021. And we think that by January 2022, we are able to find our mainstream market launch beginning. And we think that this is going to be our timeline and that we're able to bring this out a lot faster because we are basing our technology based off pre-existing research. So our cost breakdown. Well, we are requesting an investment of 3 million. And so this will go, half of this will go towards continued research and development to help make our meat have this competitive edge and to make it better. We are going to use 500,000 of this to create a marketing plan to advertise our product to ensure we get as much demand as we possibly have. And then we're going to use the last amount of money for the startup operating costs of the businesses, such as rent, utilities, or human resource management for our employees. And so to finance it, we think that because our process already builds off of existing tech and research, our R&D costs are going to be significantly lower. So we have 3 primary methods of financing. First is crowdfunding, because as we've already established with our surveys, we have a large market with significant demand for these alternatives as environmental trends seem to point towards these directions of veganism or plant-based meat, or simply avoiding livestock farming in general. So we think that we can get a couple million from crowdfunding, as many projects already have. Next, we'd like to get investments. As we told you, we would like an investment of 3 million plus with some other investors, because we have this promising product that beats our competition with this new technology. And so we think that like the high demands and the margins would be appealing. So we would expect to get quite a bit. Next, because of our high demand, we're able to pay off our loans much easier because we're able to have a high turnover rate with our product. So that concludes our presentation. We're now opening the ground for you to ask us any questions, and you can find us on Instagram on these links, or you can email.
Thank you for the presentation. One quick question in terms of like, what would be your production capacity in terms of like how much market share you can get? Like, so do you have any of that data researched?
Because we can't really, with the current resources we have, we can't really produce like our actual product yet. But because there's already pre-existing research, we think that we are able to manufacture these units at a scale where we are able to like start opening like factories to produce a few 100,000 units a month at the beginning and slowly scale it up, because we are expecting to get high demand, and therefore we're able to start scaling up to the levels of say Beyond Meat within a few years, because we are able to bring this excellent new product up into the market.
Adding on to that, this is quite a new industry and new market, so we expect to take over this market share.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. And building off of that question, if I'm understanding correctly, your pitch is that you are going to be using existing research and creating a product from that. Tell me how that, why aren't there other competitors if this is existing research? What unique advantage do you have to be able to do that?
What differentiates our product or our pitch with other competitors is right now, cultured meat is not actually on the market. It's very hard and expensive to mass produce and promote it into the mainstream market. With our research and research from other places, we have use of peptides and the alteration of DNA, we want to increase and speed up the production, which will minimize the costs, which will give us a competitive edge.
Okay, thank you.